The world looks different when you're on your knees or your belly is touching the ground. As a child, I used to love to lie in the grass and watch the clouds pass by. And I loved to explore the secret lives of little creatures. I followed Wonder this week and spent time watching a little friend eat lunch. And it's funny how little moments of nothing like this can lead to big moments of understanding. Our lives are small and yet not insignificant. I am grateful to my little friend. They have reminded me of the power of doing nothing, and this is something I would like to do more often in the future. Hello Wonder Weavers, I hope that you're having a beautiful week so far and that you're enjoying the delights of your garden or your latest project. I love hearing about your projects, and I'm really grateful to those of you who are taking the time to write and to share. It's just really inspiring, so thank you. This week I ventured into the parlour and construction has begun. I think it has been the most challenging week yet, mainly because I chose to take on lots of firsts concurrently. So this week I have been learning how to make fireplaces with the help of Jane Harrop. This book is just a wonderful source of inspiration, and I found that her instructions and her templates were incredibly helpful and pretty easy to follow too. So after laying the floor, I did a creative experiment and I used paper mache to create skirting boards, and then I also laid wallpaper for the first time, and that came with some challenges which I'll share with you. I hope you enjoy watching the trials and tribulations of working in the parlour. So we cross the threshold into the parlour. I start work this week by laying the floor, following the same process I followed for the foyer. If you would like to know more about that process, I invite you to check out one of my earlier videos, and I've put a link to it in the description box below. Before the glue dries, I make sure that I can open the door. So far so good, Wonder Weavers. Next I move on to the skirting boards, and I'm going to conduct a little creative experiment. At the moment I don't have architrave moulding or enough wood to make skirting boards, so I've decided to make them using paper mache. I roughly work out how tall I want them to be. I then cut up the back of an art pad, making sure to cut them accurately according to the length of each wall of the room. To imitate grooves, I layer small strips of the board, and I am just using PVA as the adhesive. Next I mix up some glue with clean water in a jar. I then paint the glue mixture onto the board and then apply strips of paper. You could also make the boards using a mould and paper pulp, but I felt that the strip method would be fine.
After adding the strips of paper, I smooth them with my hands, and then I put the mini skirting boards aside to dry. It will take some time for the boards to dry. For example, mine took over a day. Resist the urge to place the boards in front of a heat source. If you do, most likely the board will warp and you'll have to start again. Once dry, I decided I wanted the boards to be shorter than they were. So I cut them to size, gessoed them, and then glued them to the walls of the room. Once affixed to the wall, I seal the joints between the boards with small strips of paper and glue. On the left-hand side of the room, I leave a gap between the boards where I'm going to put the fireplace. Once the boards are completely dry, I then paint them white. Originally the walls were covered with wallpaper. It was in fact a half-drop pattern. After much thought, I've decided that I would like to add new wallpaper. I really love the art and craft movement. While doing some online research into wallpapers from the Victorian period, I discovered Raw Pixel. They have remastered some designs from this period, including some of William Morris's famous designs. I particularly love his white chrysanthemum design. I think it'll also be perfect to go with the fabric I'm intending to use for the sofa and armchairs. So I download the remastered public domain image. Later I import the image into Illustrator, reduce its size, and repeat it. Then I print out in colour several copies of the pattern on standard computer paper. Overall, I'm quite happy, although the paper I've used has a glossy surface and I don't really like that. Once on the walls, I'll try and reduce the gloss by adding matte medium. Following the dimensions of the walls, I cut the computer paper to size, using approximately 1 sheet per wall. And this is when the fun begins. I make lots of little silly mistakes. For example, I cut a sheet following the dimensions of the door, only to realize that I had mismeasured it. Once I finally managed to cut the wallpaper correctly, I then apply adhesive to the wall. Making sure that the design is the correct way up, I then gently rub the paper against the wall, starting from the bottom. Next, I start building the fireplace. I am using Jane Harrop's reception fireplace instructions as a guide. Jane helps you build a fireplace out of materials including wood, cardstock, and metal wire. While Jane categorizes this project as advanced, I have to say that overall, Jane's instructions are clear and easy to follow. So if you're a beginner, have a go. You may make mistakes and need to persevere, but you will be surprised at what you can create. Now I confess to you, Wonder Weavers, that I further complicated the process by modifying Jane's instructions. For one, I didn't have all of the materials she listed, and two, I wanted to make my fireplace more Victorian in style as opposed to Edwardian. Both Victorian and Edwardian fireplaces were central features of rooms, and were often decorated with decorative tiles. One of the changes I make to Jane's design is to create tiles and a hood using clay. I have a bit of a play with stencils and stamps, working out the best way to create decorative patterns. After creating the tiles, I then attempt to assemble and paint the mantel and the hearth. I'm pretty unhappy with my first attempt, so I take it apart and I think about how I can improve it. I identify several key issues. One was the paper I used, which was white cardstock. Second time round I used black cardstock that is heavy weighted. It's around 400 GSM. While it isn't perfect, I'm a lot happier with my second attempt. So I moved to add the final details. Inside of the hearth, I create an ash-like appearance with graphite and chalk. Then I glue the mantle to the hearth. Now it's time to place the fireplace inside of the room. As a finishing touch, I paint matte medium on the wallpaper just to reduce some of the gloss.
So stage one of the parlour has been completed, and now I'm going to put my mind towards creating bits and pieces, so some furniture and other items to decorate the room and to help bring it to life. So I can't wait to hear from you, Wonder Weavers. Stay in touch, and until the next time, take care, stay well, and don't forget to play. Ciao.